Hello there, my spooky friends. This will be a Photoshop tutorial to show you how to take me looking from this, which is a horrible face, to this, which is a horribler face, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to show you how to use adjustment layers and blend modes and a new thing called smart filters to make a good monster out of me. Now for the sake of time, I'm hoping I can get this done in 15 minutes, and I'm not going to do the arms because I just don't have time to do it. But if you have time to do it, do it. Got it? Okay. So let's start from the beginning. We open the picture and then we're going to apply the texture. So here's the picture. And there's a Monster Teacher folder on the drive where you can get this picture, or there's another picture as well. And then we're going to open up a texture, and I saved a texture in that folder too, so you could open that texture up and use it, or just copy that Monster Teacher folder over to your drive. Please don't save your files back into my folder if you don't mind. This texture is kind of big. So this is the texture at 100%. This is my picture at 100%. Be sure you compare them 100 to 100 because you really don't want to bring in extra. Now if you did the arms, you want to do each arm on a separate layer as well, probably, just for wrapping the texture. Okay, so I'm going to take a chunk that's roughly the size of my head out of here. So I'm just going to take my oval marquee tool here. I want that big scary part right there, so I'm going to grab from here this time. Maybe there. Okay, then switch to your move tool and bring it on over. Okay, and that's it for the texture, so don't save. Okay, so we've got that. Of course, if you're doing the hands, I guess you'd want to hang on to that. Now I can go ahead and bring this down a little bit size-wise to get it closer to fitting. And then probably it would be a good idea to use warp transform. So I'm going to Control-T, right-click, and warp, and that's going to give you that tic-tac-toe looking board. It might help to turn your opacity down while you're doing this, just so you can kind of see through it to see how well it fits. And then start pulling this in so it'll give it a little bit of a depth. So it kind of looks like it's wrapping around in places rather than just like sitting there in front of it. Like that. Some people like to do the neck separately, so it's kind of up to you if you want to do that or not. I'm just going to do it all on one for the sake of time. Alright, that works for me. Then additionally, I need to mask out the parts that are overlapping with my hair. So you already know how to do this, but we're going to add a layer mask to this. And this is our, I'm going to call it cracks layer, you call texture layer, whatever. I think on the other one I called it texture. And then we're going to just mask out those parts. So I added the mask. I'm going to take and click on the mask and use my paintbrush, black of course, to get rid of. And so I'm going to paint around the hair. And again, sake of time, not going to be real picky about this right now. You doing it, zoom up, vary your brush size, do a better job than I'm doing right here in this example. Okay. And use a soft brush around those edges so it will kind of blend into the skin a little bit. Okay. So we'll call that done for now. So that takes care of the cracks layer. Now you don't want cracks over the nose holes, the eyes holes, so like the crevices in the face. So you will want to go through and mask those out. And again, I'm not going to do a great job of this right now, but you want to be careful to zoom up and use a small brush, and you don't want to end up with like a bunch of extra eyelid area, but you do want to have that little part, that crack of the eyeball there. Remember, you can always mask more of it back in, so if you mess that up, just put a little bit of that color back in there. Kind of looks like I have a pig nose. But hey, that's okay. Who am I to judge me? If you did want to have a sharper line anywhere, of course, just modify the hardness of your brush to something a little harder. And then when you paint that back in, you can have a harder edge. Alright, so this is looking pretty goofy and scary and all that already. So we've got that going on. Now, we want to make the cracks blend into the face a little bit, because right now if I turn it back up, this looks so not real, like at all. So we're going to change the blending mode. And it really depends on your texture. So if you go and find your own texture, you may have to use a different blending mode. Multiply, it's kind of a fun one. It gets kind of crazy. Don't worry about the color, because I'm going to recolor this to a green color later on. We're just looking at the texture and how it interacts with the face. So you could do that. Linear burn, boy, that gets really crazy. You'd have to adjust the levels on your person layer if you were going to do that, because it's just so contrasty. Or you could go the opposite, overlay, where it lightens it. But I'm going to go with multiply in this example. And I'm going to pull the opacity back a little bit more, just so it's not quite so heavy. Alright, so I'm at about 64% there. Okay, so that takes care of that one. So I've got my background and I've got some cracks. Let's go back and take a look at the other one. So I've got that going on. The next thing we're going to do is going to be make the face green. Okay, so I'm going to select the face area. So you're going to click back on your background layer to do that. And you could do this just real quick, kind of with the oval tool if you wanted to, rather than do quick selection. But as you know, it's on a mask, so it doesn't matter. I'm not going to care that this is not perfect at all, because we'll fix it. But anyway, so I've got that selected, and I'm going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer. And I'm going to make this face a little bit greenish. Again, don't worry about the hair, worry only about the face. Alright, now I'm going to paint that out off the hair. I don't want it on there. So, whoops, wrong paintbrush, Control D. Yeah, don't make my mistakes. There we go. And again, I only get 15 minutes to do this, so I'm trying to whip this out as quickly as possible on here, but you would want to make yours look better. Okay, now again, this part looks really bad right now. So if you were doing it, oops, if you were doing it, be sure that you touch those areas up. So here's what we're at so far if we zoom out. And again, I would touch up in these areas where it needs it. Okay, so that takes care of that. So that's the green part. So we got cracks, and we got the green part. If you wanted the cracks to be covered by the green, you would lift this up. And then the cracks are also covered by the green. So you have to kind of decide how you want to do that. On the other one, I think that's how I did it. But notice it does make a difference. The cracks will take on the green depending on where you put that green adjustment layer. Okay, let's go back to the other one so you can see. Now we're going to add some burning around the eyes, and then we're going to sharpen it up so it looks kind of more evil and sinister. Now, there is a burn tool over here. I don't use it because it's destructive, and you can't come back from that, as they say. So if you go over here where the lollipop is, that's the dodge tool. The burn tool would burn if I was clicking on my background layer and make areas dark, but that's not reversible. So we're going to do it using an adjustment layer. So I'm just going to click on here and add an adjustment layer. Actually, we can do it without an adjustment layer. We can just do it with a blending mode. So let's do that. So I'm going to call this burns. And you're just going to take a paintbrush, not black. Okay? It can be anything but black. And the color doesn't matter really, but not black. And then we're going to put where we want the burn areas to be. Again, we're doing this on this new layer. So I'm just going to put, I need to be on my paintbrush tool. I need to take my paintbrush tool and that color and burn the area that I want to be burned. Don't worry about what this looks like right now. Okay. You probably do want to use a softer brush. I've got kind of a hard brush going on here. Okay. Probably want to burn in the nose area, maybe even around the mouth, and maybe even on some of these areas where there are some features that I want. And I can touch this up later. Now this looks really bad, but we're going to change the blending mode. I think I used soft light on this one. There we go. And you can see what that does. It kind of gives it that painted on look. Again, we can modify the opacity so it's not as dark. So you can do that as well. You know, if I wanted to burn the mouth area, I could do that. The mouth probably I don't want this green to, so I could come in here and maybe paint the so that the mouth doesn't turn green as well. There's so many things. Everybody's is going to look a little differently. You just have to kind of decide, you know, what you want to do on that. Okay, there. That's just more gory if it's red-ish. Okay, so that's my burn one. But you can play around with any of these. Like there's hard light. I'm just scrolling through them. Some of them are really evil. But the soft light's the most kind of subtle. And overlay is going to be a little darker. So just be careful how you use it. Some of them are going to look goofy. And that's okay. It's just kind of up to how you want your monster to look. So I'm going to go to soft light. I'm going to touch it up just a little bit. So I'm going to come back to this mat or to this layer. It's not a mask. We're just painting with paintbrush. I'm going to kind of make it a little more even. There. So that big brush that's soft, so you get kind of a better look about that. So I can go kind of around the mouth, maybe some of these areas up here, like I got some bruising. There would be kind of darker shadows around the neck, so maybe go in that area. And then, of course, if you need to get rid of it, you could actually just use an eraser on this since it's just a painted layer. So anyway, so far that's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty scary. Okay, now this is something new. We're going to convert our background to a smart layer, and that's because we're going to add a filter. And I don't want to add the filter to the whole picture, and I want it to be non-destructive because you know how I am. So convert this to a smart object, just a simple right click. And it's going to say layer 2. I'm going to name it me. And now I can add a filter to this smart object. which will be a smart filter. And the filter we're going to use is Sharpen, and I'm going to go to Smart Sharpen. Now look at this. This almost looks kind of like, you don't want the whole picture to have this effect, but look what it does to the face. It just looks like, I don't know, it reminds me of a toad. You can change these numbers. I've modified mine a bit, so 119, 1.9 is what I've got these set to. Totally going to be up to you what kind of numbers you want to use. So slide it around, and then I'm going to click on this mask and make it all ignore the mask. So basically I want to take this and make it black. So just press Control I, and that should flip it. And then now I just paint in where I want the sharpening. So I'm painting in with white. See, look at that. So much more gruesome. Yeah, like that. If you wanted to paint in, a little bit in the hair or some of these other areas, you can do that as well. Now, of course, if you were doing this for real, I would ask that you go ahead and remove this person from the background in the beginning. But even if you forgot to do that, you could always add a background in layer and mask out this background. But in the future, go ahead and isolate your person to their own layer before you do all this work. So there we go. Wow, I think this one's even better than my other one. I'm kind of proud of it. So there we go. There's the other one. And here's this one. See, it's just even better. I used a different texture part. So anyway, there you go. That is my really quick, fast, 15-minute way to turn somebody into a gruesome, horrible monster. So have fun turning people into monsters. Remember, a lot of this has to do with messing with opacities and blend modes, using adjustment layers where needed, masking out where you don't. And of course, adding this multiply to this texture really allowed the skin to also show through, which is kind of critical. The burns, that really makes it more real because we have some of that different colors instead of just a solid green that's going on. And then the new thing was this smart filter. Smart filters are cool. You can apply any filter to just the area you want it by doing that. So pretty cool stuff. Anyway, have fun monster making. Hoo hoo ha ha.